I lay in a hospital bed alone. My parents didn't visit. Meanwhile, they spent thousands sending my sister to the Maldives. When I stopped coming home, they acted confused. The smell of hospitals still sticks with me sometimes. That strange mix of disinfectant and overcooked cafeteria food that seeps into your clothes and hair no matter what. I remember breathing it in for 11 long days after the accident, lying there against sterile white walls while my phone barely lit up. 11 days is a hell of a long time to be stuck flat on your back, staring at the ceiling with a shattered femur, 3 cracked ribs, and a pounding concussion, wondering if your folks are ever going to walk through that door. They never did. My name's Nora, and I'm 29 now. This all went down 3 years ago, but honestly it still feels raw every time it crosses my mind. Back then I was living in Portland for my graphic design job, about a 4-hour drive from my hometown of Sacramento, where my parents still lived. The accident happened on a Tuesday morning. A guy blew through a red light and slammed straight into the driver's side of my car. I can still hear the screech of metal twisting in on itself, the airbag smacking me in the face, and then nothing until I came to in the back of an ambulance. The first call I made from that hospital bed was to my mom. I was foggy from pain meds, barely stringing words together, but I managed to tell her what happened. She sounded worried enough, asked if I was all right, and said she'd see what they could do. That line should have told me everything I needed to know. See what they could do. Like visiting your daughter in a hospital bed was some errand to pencil into a crowded calendar. My dad got on the phone for maybe a minute, asked if I'd filed an insurance claim, gotten the other driver's info, or talked to a lawyer yet. Not a single "we're coming now" or "hang tight, we'll be there soon." Just business. I waited. The first day passed. My coworker Jenna dropped by with magazines and snacks. Day 2, my best friend Caleb drove 3 hours from Seattle, just to keep me company for a bit. Day 3, my manager sent flowers. Day 4, the lady from the apartment next door, someone I'd only nodded to in passing, left a care basket outside my door. Still no sign of my parents. I called again on day 5. Mom picked up, and I could hear one of her renovation shows playing in the background. "Hey sweetie, how are you feeling?" she asked, like we were catching up over coffee. "Better, I guess. The pain's rough. They might have to do another surgery on my leg," I told her, waiting for her to fill the silence. "I thought you guys might have come by now." The TV went quieter. Then came her soft, careful voice. "Nora, honey, you know how it is. Your dad's back has been acting up, and I can't leave him alone when he's like this. Plus, we're planning something special for Megan's birthday next month, and it's been so busy." Megan, my younger sister, 25, fresh out of business school, and forever the son my parents revolved around. 3 years younger than me, but somehow light years ahead in their hearts. "Mom, I was in a serious accident. I almost died." "Don't be so dramatic, sweetheart," she said. "The doctor said you'll be fine. You're young and strong, you'll bounce back." That call barely lasted another 5 minutes before I mumbled an excuse to hang up. I lay there staring at the 4 drip, feeling something deep inside me splinter worse than my leg. A nurse named Denise must have seen it in my face. She was an older black woman with the kindest eyes, always checking in on me. "Family troubles?" she asked softly. I could only nod. "Some folks just don't know how to show up," she said as she fluffed my pillow. "That says everything about them and nothing about you." I clung to those words like a rope keeping me above water. The rail hit came about 3 weeks after I got discharged. I was hobbling around my second-floor apartment on crutches, trying to work from home with my leg trapped in a heavy cast. Every step hurt like hell. Jenna kept doing my grocery runs, and Caleb called every couple of days just to check in. Then one night Megan called, her voice all lit up with excitement. "Nora, you won't believe this. Mom and Dad are sending me to the Maldives for my birthday. 2 whole weeks at some crazy resort. It's my graduation gift too, since I worked so hard." My stomach just dropped. "The Maldives?" I asked. "I know, right? The flights alone are like $3,000 each. They're coming too. Family trip." "Well, family minus you, but obviously you can't travel right now with your leg and all." "Obviously," I said flatly. "Do you know how much they're spending?" "Not exactly, but Mom said the whole thing's about $25,000. The place has overwater villas, private beaches, everything. $25,000. They couldn't drive 4 hours to see me in a hospital bed, But 25 grand for a tropical getaway? That math just didn't add up. That's great, Meg. I'm happy for you. You okay? You sound weird. Just tired. The meds mess with me. We hung up soon after. I sat there staring at my phone, feeling that old crack in me split wide open. This wasn't forgetfulness, it was a decision. A deliberate choice about who mattered and who didn't. Growing up, Megan was always the favorite. Straight A's, volleyball captain, student council. She had the whole package. I was the artsy one with B's, spending lunch breaks in the art room and later settling for a state college instead of something fancy. Megan got a shiny new car at 16. I got grandma's beat-up Civic with no AC. Her college was paid in full. I juggled 2 jobs and student loans. I always told myself it wasn't favoritism, just timing. They had more money by the time she came along. She needed more because she had bigger dreams. I spent years building excuses trying to make the imbalance make sense. But the hospital broke that illusion clean in half. The months that followed were a blur of healing bones and something else, something hard and cold, forming inside me where forgiveness used to be. Maybe it was anger, or maybe it was finally seeing things clearly for the first time. It felt like I'd twisted the focus ring on a camera, and suddenly all the blurry pieces of my family snapped into perfect, painful clarity. Thanksgiving was around the corner when my mom called one evening in early November. "Nora, honey, we need your help with Thanksgiving this year. Megan wants to do something fun and modern, kind of a Friendsgiving vibe. You're the creative one. I thought you could help with decorations and table settings." I took a deep breath. "I'm not coming to Thanksgiving this year." Silence. Then sharp disbelief. "What do you mean you're not coming? It's Thanksgiving, for heaven's sake. It's family tradition." "I'm making other plans." "What plans? With who?" "Friends," I said simply, and it wasn't even a lie. Jenna had invited me to spend the holiday with her family, and for once I decided to say yes. "Nora, this is ridiculous. You can't just skip Thanksgiving." "Watch me." I hung up before she could say another word. My hands were trembling, but there was a strange sense of freedom buzzing under my skin. Scary but good. Thanksgiving came and went, and I spent it surrounded by Jenna's loud, warm, and perfectly perfect family. People who debated politics too loudly, laughed over spilled gravy, and hugged like they meant it. In a single day, I felt more included than I had in decades of sitting at my own family's table. My phone lit up with messages from my mom, my dad, and Megan. I ignored every one of them. Then came Christmas. Same script, new month. Mom called 3 weeks early. "Nora, we need to talk about this attitude of yours. You skipped Thanksgiving, and now you're telling me you won't be here for Christmas either?" "That's right," I said. "What's going on with you? Ever since your accident, you've been distant and cold." I almost laughed at the audacity. "You mean the accident you couldn't be bothered to visit me after?" "We explained about your father's back. The same back that was suddenly fine enough for him to fly to the Maldives a month later." Another silence. "That was different," she said weakly. "It was a special occasion for your sister. And me being in the hospital wasn't special enough? You're being unfair, Nora. We had a lot going on." "I had broken bones, Mom. I was alone for almost 2 weeks." "You had people visiting. Megan said your friends came by. So they'd been keeping tabs, just not enough to show up themselves." That kind of hurt in a new way. "I'm not coming for Christmas. Please don't ask again." She tried to argue, but I ended the call. Later that night, Megan texted me a long paragraph about how selfish I was, how I was ruining family traditions, how everything was somehow always about me. I didn't bother replying. After that, the pattern continued. Easter, Mother's Day, the 4th of July, Dad's birthday. I skipped them all. Each time, the flood of calls and messages came. My mom crying in voicemails about how I was breaking her heart. My dad telling me I was acting immature and needed to grow up. Megan sending me articles about the importance of family bonds. But not once, not once, did any of them ask what was actually wrong. Not a single apology for the hospital. No acknowledgement of the hurt they caused. It was all about how my absence affected them, how I was the disruption in their perfect holiday routine. So I started over. I began piecing together a new kind of family from the people who actually showed up. Jenna became the sister I wished I'd had. Caleb and his husband Trevor, folded me into their circle of friends, and suddenly my weeks were full of game nights, weekend hikes, and texts that just said, "Did you eat today?" For the first time, I wasn't the afterthought in someone's life. I also started therapy. That was Jenna's idea, and I went in thinking I'd breeze through it. But Dr. Park had this calm way of asking questions that hit straight through my armor. She wanted to talk about my childhood, and I kept saying it was fine, normal, even. My parents didn't abuse me. I told her during our third session. They fed me, clothed me, sent me to school. I had everything I needed. I sound ungrateful for even complaining. Emotional neglect is still neglect, Dr. Park said gently. The absence of something essential can be just as damaging as the presence of something harmful. That line stuck with me. At her suggestion, I started keeping a journal. Every night, I'd write down memories I'd brushed aside or excused. It was harder than I expected. Page after page of quiet little wounds I'd ignored. Like the time in 8th grade when I won second place in a statewide art contest. My teacher was thrilled, said I had real talent. I came home beaming, waving my certificate and the $50 check. And Mom just glanced at it before turning back to help Megan with her algebra homework. Dad was at one of Megan's volleyball games. The certificate ended up shoved in a drawer somewhere, forgotten. Or high school graduation. Megan had a middle school volleyball tournament that same weekend. My parents showed up to the ceremony but bolted right after so they could drive her 3 hours away for the game. No dinner, no celebration. Just a quick "we're proud of you" before they left. I ended up at Denny's with some friends, pretending I didn't care that they'd chosen a middle school game over my graduation. Then there was college move-in day. They helped unload my boxes, hugged me, and left within 2 hours because they had to get back for Megan's birthday dinner. My roommate's parents spent the whole day setting up her room, taking her to lunch, making her feel seen. I watched them and felt something ache deep inside me. Something I couldn't name back then. Envy maybe, or grief for what I never had. Writing it all down made the pattern impossible to ignore. These weren't isolated incidents. They were the blueprint of our family dynamic. Megan was the sun, and the rest of us were just planets caught in her orbit. The hardest part to swallow was realizing I'd been an accomplice in my own smallness. I'd learned early on to shrink myself, to stay quiet, not need too much, to be the easy one. In a house where love felt like a limited resource already spoken for, being low maintenance seemed like the only way to earn a share of it. Dr. Park once asked me what I'd tell my younger self if I could go back. I'd tell her she deserved better, I said. Then I broke down crying and didn't stop for 20 minutes. Jenna noticed something different about me not long after. We were sitting in a coffee shop one lazy Saturday when she looked up from her drink and said, "You seem different lately. Lighter somehow, but also sadder." "Therapy's making me face things I've been avoiding for years," I told her. "Is it helping?" she asked. I thought about it for a second. "Yeah, it hurts like hell, but yeah." She reached across the table and gave my hand a squeeze. "For what it's worth, I think you're incredibly brave. Most people just keep swallowing poison and calling it medicine." That line hit hard. How many years had I done exactly that, swallowing poison, pretending it was nourishment? Around then, I started noticing the small ways real care showed up in my life. The way Jenna always remembered my exact coffee order. How Caleb would send me random articles about something I'd mentioned in passing weeks before. How Trevor would save me a seat at game night without me saying a word. None of it was flashy, but it was steady. It was love disguised as attention. For so long, I'd believed love had to come from blood or obligation. It never occurred to me that real love might look like someone remembering you take oat milk, or texting to make sure you got home safe, or ditching their plans just to sit beside you in a hospital room. Around that time, I also started dating again. His name was Adam, an urban planner I'd met through Caleb at a dinner party. He was funny, easy to talk to, and honest about liking me in a way that didn't feel performative. We took it slow, which I appreciated while I was still putting my head and heart back together. My birthday rolled around that first March after I'd cut off family holidays. I didn't expect anything from my parents, and they didn't disappoint. My mom sent a text around 9 that night. "Happy birthday, sweetie." Nothing from my dad. Megan posted a childhood photo of us on Instagram with a corny caption about sisterhood forever, but didn't even text me directly. Meanwhile, Jenna had quietly orchestrated a full-blown surprise party. I came home from work to find streamers, balloons, and 10 of my friends yelling surprise. They'd made my favorite dishes, decorated my place, and spent the whole night celebrating me. Adam, who I'd only been seeing for a few weeks, handed me a vintage art supply kit he'd found at an estate sale. "You mentioned wanting to start painting again," he said when he saw my eyes water. "It felt like the universe telling me what to get you." That night stood in painful contrast to my 25th birthday, the last one I'd spent with my family. They'd taken me to a chain restaurant, ordered a grocery store cake, and talked almost entirely about Megan's internship promotion. They gave me a Target gift card. It was fine. Forgettable. The kind of birthday where you're grateful people showed up but still feel invisible. But my 26? Surrounded by people who'd planned, cared, and noticed the small things about me. I felt seen for the first time in my life. It was joyful and heartbreaking all at once. In therapy, Dr. Park helped me untangle the guilt that came with that happiness. "You're not a bad person for protecting yourself," she'd remind me often. "You don't owe anyone your pain as proof of loyalty. You're not obligated to set yourself on fire to keep other people warm." Still, the guilt lingered. I'd been raised on the gospel of family first, no matter what. Walking away felt like betrayal. Some nights I'd lie awake wondering if I was being dramatic, if maybe I should just let it go. Then I'd remember those 11 hospital days, the sterile walls, the endless waiting, the nurses walking in instead of my parents, and that hot, clean anger would flood back. I wasn't overreacting. I was finally reacting like a person who'd had enough. During one session, Dr. Park asked, "Why do you think you owe loyalty to people who don't prioritize you?" "Because they're my parents," I said automatically. She gave me this soft, steady look. That's not an answer to my question. And she was right. I'd built my whole emotional code around the idea that blood equals obligation, that love was a duty, not a choice. Saying it out loud made it sound as empty as it truly was. Then, near the 1-year mark of my accident, my mom showed up at my apartment. No call, no warning. I'd moved to a ground floor unit by then, fully healed, living a quiet life I actually liked. Seeing her face through the peephole made my heart stutter. For a long second I considered not answering. My hand hovered over the knob before I finally turned it. "Nora," she said, her voice shaky. She looked older, more gray at the temples, softer somehow. Or maybe I was just seeing her clearly for the first time. "We need to talk. You should have called first. You don't answer my calls anymore," she shot back. "Fair." I stepped aside and let her in. The place was small but warm. Plants, thrifted furniture I'd refinished myself. Art prints on every wall. It looked like me in a way my childhood room never had. She glanced around, her voice quiet. "This is lovely, Nora." We sat down, her body perched on the edge of my couch like she was ready to bolt at the first sign of trouble. "Your father and I are worried about you," she started, clasping her hands tightly in her lap. "We don't understand what happened. You just cut us off out of nowhere." "It wasn't out of nowhere," I said evenly. "Then explain it to me, please." So I did. For 20 straight minutes I let everything spill out, the hospital, the endless loneliness, the fear, the pain, the calls that turned into excuses, the vacation that came right after, and the years of Madison always taking priority while I made excuses for it. It all came out in one long exhale I didn't know I'd been holding. She sat there quietly through it all, at least listening. When I finally stopped, the silence was so heavy I could hear the clock ticking in the kitchen. "We didn't realize it meant so much to you," she said at last. "I was in the hospital," I reminded her. "I know," she said, looking defensive. "But you said yourself you had visitors. Friends came. We thought you were fine." "Did you actually think I was fine? Or was that just easier than admitting you should have been there?" Her jaw tightened. "That's not fair, Nora. You're acting like we're these awful parents who never cared about you. We raised you. We provided for you. We loved you. Did you love me the same way you love Megan?" I asked quietly. "That's a horrible thing to say." "Is it?" "Because from where I'm sitting, the evidence says otherwise." She shot to her feet, face flushed. "I came here to fix this, to be the bigger person, and you're just hurling accusations. You're not even trying to meet me halfway." "Meet you halfway? Mom, you haven't even said you're sorry. You haven't acknowledged what you did. You're just mad that I stopped playing the role you assign me." Her voice wavered but sharpened again. We're your family, Nora. Family means showing up even when things are hard. The hypocrisy of that statement nearly made me laugh. You're right, I said softly. Family does mean showing up. Even when it's hard. Even when it's inconvenient. Even when it's just a 4-hour drive to a hospital. She stared at me for a long moment, then turned and left. No apology, no acknowledgement, just the kind of disappointment meant to shame me back into line. A few days later, Megan called, furious. Do you have any idea what you've done? Mom's been crying for days. Dad won't even say your name. You've destroyed this family. I haven't destroyed anything, I said calmly. I just stopped pretending everything was fine. You're being selfish, Nora. Not everything is about you. You're right, I said. Nothing was ever about me. That's kind of the point. God, you're impossible. If you want to throw away your family over one mistake, that's on you. One mistake? They've been choosing you over me my whole life. The hospital was just when I finally saw it clearly. Oh my God, you're just jealous because I work harder and actually achieve things. This isn't about favoritism. It's about you being bitter. That was when it hit me. Megan would never understand. She'd been so comfortable in the glow of their love that she couldn't even recognize the shadow it cast. Asking her to see it was like asking a fish to notice water. Okay, Meg. You're right. I'm bitter and jealous. You win, I said and hung up. The second year of my self-imposed exile was easier. The guilt had faded, replaced with a kind of peace I didn't know I was allowed to have. That Thanksgiving I was at Caleb and Trevor's, surrounded by their noisy, mismatched circle of friends. Christmas was with Jenna and her big, chaotic family. Adam and I grew closer, steady and natural. One night over dinner he said, "Some people are toxic even when they don't mean to be. You're allowed to protect yourself from that." My 27th birthday came in March. Jenna threw another surprise party. 20 people showed up this time. Friends I'd gathered like seashells over 2 years. We laughed until our sides hurt, ate too much cake, and played board games past midnight. I felt more celebrated that night than I ever had at home. My parents mailed a card. No gift, just a generic "hope you're well." Megan didn't even acknowledge it. And surprisingly, I was okay with that. I had a full, vibrant life now, one built around people who chose me without obligation. It was enough. Then, that September, my grandmother passed away. My dad's mom, Grandma Louise, was 92. Her death wasn't a shock, but it still stung deep. She'd always been kind to me, the one person in that family who saw me for who I was. When I was a kid, I'd spend summers at her house painting in her garage, her never once criticizing my work. She'd tell me I was special in ways that mattered. So the funeral wasn't something I could skip. Walking into that church felt like crossing enemy lines. My parents sat in the front row beside Megan, faces tight with grief and something unspoken. I slid quietly into a pew near the back. A few relatives waved, clearly unsure what rock I'd crawled out from under after years of absence. My Aunt Carol came over before the service started. "Nora, sweetheart. We've missed you. Where've you been hiding?" "Just busy with work and life," I said. "Well, family's important. Your parents have been worried sick," she said gently. I nodded, biting back the urge to laugh. Their worry had shown up 2 years too late. The service was beautiful, full of warmth and stories about Grandma Louise's generosity and grace. Megan gave a eulogy that brought people to tears. I listened, feeling strangely detached, like I was watching a movie I'd already seen. At the reception afterward, held at my parents' house of course, I tried to fade into the background. I stayed in the kitchen refilling trays, avoiding small talk. But my mom eventually found me. "Nora," she said softly, as if testing the air. "You came." Of course I came. I loved Grandma. "Can we talk? Your father wants to as well." I followed her down the familiar hallway to my dad's study, the same room where I'd once been lectured about bad grades and attitude problems. The air felt heavier there, like all the old ghosts were still sitting in the corners waiting. Dad was already there when I walked into the study, looking stiff and uneasy in his suit like he couldn't wait to take it off. They both sat down, perfectly posed side by side, while I stayed standing near the doorway. Mom was the first to speak. "We've been thinking," she began carefully, "about what you said before. About the hospital. And maybe we could have handled things differently." Asterisk could have. Maybe. Asterisk not we were wrong, not asterisk we're sorry. Asterisk just the faintest trace of acknowledgement, so watered down it barely meant anything. Okay, I said flatly. We want you to come back to family events, she went on. We want to fix this. Fix this. I repeated. What does fixing it look like to you? They glanced at each other. A silent exchange that told me everything. We all move past this, Dad said. You stop holding grudges, we all try harder to stay connected. Fresh start. I stared at him. So I just pretend none of it happened? Forget that you chose a vacation over visiting me in the hospital? Pretend years of being the backup kid didn't exist? Smile through the holidays like we're the picture of family harmony? You're being dramatic again, Mom snapped, that sharp tone I knew too well slipping through her polished words. We're trying here, Nora. We're extending an olive branch. The least you could do is be gracious about it. And there it was. The truth plain as day. They didn't want reconciliation, they wanted compliance. They wanted the illusion of a united family without doing a single ounce of the work it would take to actually earn it. I appreciate the offer, I said slowly, but I don't think I'm ready for that. Dad frowned. When will you be ready? It's been 2 years. Maybe never. I don't know. Mom's face hardened like drying cement. So you're just going to throw away your family over this? Miss your sister's wedding someday? Miss seeing your nieces and nephews? All because we didn't visit you one time in the hospital? Asterisk one time. Asterisk she said it like it was an isolated event instead of the breaking point of a lifelong pattern. It wasn't one time, Mom. It was every time. Every time you made me feel like an afterthought, every time you brushed off what mattered to me, every time you chose Megan over me. I was the backup child, the one you loved out of obligation, not affection. That's not true, she said, standing now too, her voice trembling with anger. We love you both equally. Actions speak louder than words, I said quietly. And your actions have been screaming at me my whole life. I just finally started listening. I walked out. Madison was waiting in the hallway, arms crossed, her eyes sharp. Real classy, Nora. Making Grandma's funeral about you and your victim complex. I didn't make it about anything, I said. They cornered me. You could have just agreed to come to Christmas, she snapped. Would have cost you nothing to make them happy. It would have cost me my self-respect, I said evenly. She rolled her eyes. You're so dramatic. Honestly, we're better off without you there anyway. You always bring everyone down with your dark cloud energy. A few years ago that would have gutted me. But looking at her now, so sure, so blind to the privilege she swam in, I felt nothing but pity. Take care of yourself, Meg. And I walked out. The drive back to Portland was long and quiet. I kept hoping somewhere deep down that maybe they'd surprise me, that they'd apologize even just a little, that they'd show some real effort to understand. But they hadn't. They'd proven everything I already knew. They didn't want change, they wanted asterisk order. Asterisk me back in my place, smiling in family photos, pretending things were fine. The weeks after Grandma's funeral felt strange, like I'd finally shut a door I'd been holding open for far too long. That conversation in the study had been my last test of them, and they'd failed spectacularly. It still hurt, of course it did, but the grief was cleaner now, like mourning something I'd already known was gone. I found myself thinking about Grandma Louise a lot after that. She'd always been the only one who saw the truth. I remember being 14, standing awkwardly in her living room as Mom fussed over one of Megan's latest awards. Grandma had leaned toward me and whispered, "Your parents don't see it, but I do. You're special too, Nora. Don't let anyone make you forget that." Back then I'd laughed it off, uncomfortable with someone acknowledging the imbalance I'd been trained to ignore. But she'd seen it. She'd known. I wished I'd talked to her more before she passed, asked if she ever tried to say something to them, if she thought it would have made a difference. But maybe it wouldn't have. You can't make people see what they've decided not to. Work became my escape after that. I was leading a big rebranding project for a tech startup, and losing myself in deadlines and design felt strangely healing. My boss, a powerhouse named Jennifer who'd built her own company from scratch, stopped by my desk one afternoon. "You've been killing it lately," she said. "The client's thrilled. We're opening up a senior designer role soon, and I want you to apply." A promotion. Recognition that had nothing to do with family politics or favoritism, just talent and effort. Absolutely, I said, trying to sound calm while fighting the urge to cry. She smiled. You seem surprised. I guess I'm not used to people noticing my work, I admitted. Her eyes softened. Nora, you're ridiculously talented. Anyone who doesn't see that? That's their loss. I got the promotion 2 weeks later along with a solid raise. The first person I called was Jenna. She screamed so loudly I had to hold the phone away. We're celebrating tonight. No arguments. Caleb and Trevor hosted a dinner the next night, complete with champagne and bad karaoke. Adam kissed me like I just won an Oscar. Everyone kept saying how proud they were, how I'd earned it, how my talent had always been obvious. It wasn't until halfway through the night that I realized I hadn't told my parents. It hadn't even crossed my mind to. There was a time when they would have been my first call, when I would have craved their approval like oxygen. But now, they weren't even part of the picture. And that, more than anything, told me just how far I'd come. The absence of that old need for approval felt like the purest kind of freedom. By then, Ben and I had been together about 6 months, and things were getting serious in that easy, natural way where you don't have to force anything. He'd been patient from the start, never trying to fix me or minimize what I'd been through, just giving me space to be honest about it. One night, we were lying in bed after celebrating my promotion when he asked, "Do you think you'll ever make up with them?" I stared at the ceiling, tracing the cracks in the plaster. "I don't know," I said finally. Part of me wants to believe they'll have some miraculous realization and suddenly become different people. But that's not realistic. They are who they are. "If they apologized, really apologized, would you go back?" he asked gently. "An apology would be a start," I said. "But it would have to come with actual change. Not words, not guilt, just actions that prove they value me. That I'm not just something they check off a list." I turned to him. "Does it bother you that I don't talk to my family?" "No," he said simply. "I think it's brave. My parents are great, so I can't fully understand what you went through, but I've seen how much lighter you've become since you set those boundaries. That tells me everything I need to know." He pulled me closer and smiled. "Besides, your chosen family is pretty amazing. I'm just lucky to be part of it." I fell a little more in love with him right then. When the holidays rolled around that year, my third without attending a single family gathering, the guilt was barely a whisper. Emma's parents had officially adopted me as their honorary daughter, and her mom sent me a handwritten Thanksgiving card that said, "Asterisk, you're part of our family now. No obligation, just love." Asterisk, I cried reading it. Ugly, heaving, cathartic tears. Christmas was spent at Marcus and Trevor's new house. They just moved in and wanted to host for the first time. About 15 of us filled their living room, swapping gifts, drinking too much spiked eggnog, and laughing until we could barely breathe. At one point, Marcus raised his glass and said, "To found family, the people we choose and who choose us back." Everyone cheered. My chest ached with gratitude. Later that night, my phone buzzed with a text from my mom. Asterisk, just checking in. Hope you're having a nice holiday. Asterisk, I set the phone face down and didn't reply. When Ben and I walked home later through the quiet, snow-covered streets, he was a little tipsy and extra affectionate. "I love you," he said suddenly, voice soft and sure. In case I haven't made that clear enough. I stopped, turned toward him under the streetlight. "I love you too," I said. We kissed while the snow fell around us, and for a moment, it felt like something out of a movie. The kind of moment I used to dream about before life got complicated. Walking away from my family had made room for this, for love that was given freely, not rationed, for holidays that felt real, not performative, for connections built on mutual respect, not duty. For the first time, I understood something I'd never been able to see before. I wasn't broken. There had never been anything wrong with me. They just couldn't see what they had, and losing me was a consequence of their own choices. Their loss, not mine. Dr. Park asked me about all of it during our next session. "How do you feel about the encounter now?" she asked. "Sad," I admitted, "but also free. I kept hoping they'd prove me wrong, that maybe I'd misread everything, but they just confirmed it all over again." "Is there relief in that?" she asked. I thought for a second. Yeah, there is. Life kept moving forward. Ben and I grew closer. Emma's family treated me like one of their own. Marcus and Trevor asked me to be a bridesmaid when they renewed their vows. My art business picked up online, something I'd started during recovery that had slowly turned into a real source of pride. I got another promotion at work. My life was full, genuinely beautifully full, of people who showed up without being asked. Every holiday card from my parents was the same now. Generic, polite, the kind you buy in bulk. Megan got engaged 6 months ago. I didn't hear it from her. I saw the photos on Instagram. The wedding's set for next summer, and I doubt an invitation's coming. People sometimes ask me if I regret cutting them off. The answer's complicated. I regret that it had to happen. I regret that they couldn't be the parents I needed. I regret spending my childhood auditioning for love I should have been given freely. But I don't regret choosing myself. I don't regret setting boundaries or walking away from a dynamic that kept me small. The truth is, they're not terrible people. They didn't beat me or abandon me. They just loved my sister more. And maybe they didn't even realize it. But intent doesn't erase impact. I spent years shrinking myself to fit their version of family, convincing myself it wasn't that bad, that being too sensitive was the problem. The hospital was just the moment I ran out of excuses. People like to talk about forgiveness as if it's a magic cure for everything. But forgiveness without change is just permission for more of the same. If they ever wanted forgiveness, they'd have to acknowledge what they did, take accountability, and show through time and action that I mattered as much as Megan. They haven't. And maybe they never will. So yes, I'm the daughter who skips the holidays. The one they probably describe to relatives as cold or ungrateful or just difficult. They get to be the wounded parents, baffled by their daughter's distance. But I know the truth. I was lying in a hospital bed, broken and scared, and they couldn't make a 4-hour drive. A month later, they flew halfway across the world for my sister's birthday. That's the whole story in one comparison. That's all anyone needs to know. These days, I'm building something better. A life full of people who choose me back. Friends who show up. Partner who listens. A community that feels like home. Blood doesn't make you family. Love does. Consistency does. Showing up does. My parents had every opportunity to be that for me. They just didn't. So I chose myself instead. And honestly, I've never been happier.